The slap didn't hurt as much as the silence that followed. You know that moment when a room full of people suddenly goes quiet, like someone just hit the mute button on life? That's what happened. A bunch of suits, cocktail dresses, and fake business smiles, all frozen like someone had paused a movie. I'm Charlie Williams, 47 years old, and I'd been through worse than this. 8 years in the Navy will teach you about real trouble. But standing there in that Dallas steakhouse, my cheeks stinging from Patricia Anderson's ring, I felt something I hadn't felt since boot camp. Complete humiliation in front of people who mattered. Here's what they didn't know. This whole mess started because I accidentally bumped into a woman at the bar, barely touched her shoulder. Really. I was reaching for my bourbon when she whipped around like I'd just stolen her purse. "Watch where you're going, old man," she snapped. Her voice cut through the holiday party chatter like a knife. "You're blocking the VIP section." VIP section? It was an open bar at our company Christmas dinner. But before I could even apologize, her hand connected with my face. Hard, the kind of slap that echoes and leaves your ears ringing. "You nobody," she added, like she was spitting out something bitter. That's when the whole place went dead quiet. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the waiters froze with their trays, watching this drama unfold like it was dinner theater. And that's when I realized who I'd just been slapped by. Patricia Anderson, the CEO's wife, a woman who'd never worked a day at Pinnacle Manufacturing, but somehow thought she owned the place. The thing is, nobody at that party knew the real story. I wasn't just some operations consultant they tolerated at meetings. Through something called Falcon Capital Holdings, a trust so boring on paper it could cure insomnia, I owned controlling interest in Pinnacle Manufacturing Solutions. Every paycheck they cashed, every bonus they celebrated, every fancy Christmas dinner they attended, it all flowed through my investment channels. But they thought I was just Charlie from the finance department, the quiet guy who somehow made their numbers work and fixed their procurement disasters when nobody was looking. I liked it that way. When you're the obvious boss, you get blamed when things go wrong. I preferred to own the foundation and let other people stand on it. So there I stood, 47 years old, Navy veteran who'd served 8 years protecting this country. Secret owner of the company that employed everyone in that room, getting lectured by the CEO's wife like I was some intern who'd wandered into the wrong party. That's when Barbara Johnson from HR came clicking over in her heels. She took one look at me, one look at Patricia Anderson with her perfectly styled hair and designer dress, and made her choice without asking a single question. "Sir," she said to me, and yes, she emphasized sir like it was an insult, "please step outside immediately." I blinked at her. I'm the one who got hit here. Barbara's smile was plastic, the kind they teach in customer service training. "We need to de-escalate this situation before it gets worse. Before it gets worse." A woman had just assaulted me in front of 50 witnesses, and somehow I was the problem that needed managing. Then Dan Anderson appeared, my supposed boss. The CEO who thought he'd built this company from scratch with his vision and leadership. He put his arm around his wife like she was the victim here, like she needed protection from the dangerous old man who dared to exist near her. "You're lucky Patricia doesn't press charges," he said, not even looking at me directly. His voice had that tone parents use when they're disappointed in their children. "Either apologize to my wife or you're done here." I looked around that room, at all the regional managers and vendors pretending to check their phones, at the department heads suddenly fascinated by their dinner plates, at people I'd kept employed through 2 cash flow crises and an almost SEC investigation that Dan still doesn't know I handled behind the scenes. They were all watching some nobody get put in his place. That's what they thought they were seeing. I could have told them right then. Could have explained exactly who was really signing their paychecks. Could have pulled out my phone and shown them the Falcon Capital Holdings documents that proved I owned 60% of the company they worked for, but I didn't. You know why? Because in the Navy, they taught us about strategic patience, about waiting for the right moment to make your move, about letting your enemies think they're winning while you position yourself for the real battle. I didn't give a speech. Didn't flip any tables or make a dramatic scene. I just looked at Dan, at Patricia with her satisfied smirk, at Barbara with her fake concerned expression. Then I walked out, slow and dignified, like my drill sergeant taught me. When you're dismissed, you leave with your head up and your mouth shut. The Texas winter air hit me hard outside. December in Dallas isn't gentle, but it cleared my head and reminded me who I really was. I didn't wait for the valet or grab my coat. Just walked to my truck in the parking garage, started the engine, and drove home in complete silence. Because when the woman who doesn't pay any salaries gets mistaken for royalty, and when her husband tells you to grovel for permission to stay at the job you're secretly funding, there's only one thing left to do. Let them find out who really owns the building they're standing in. You want to know how this whole thing really started? It goes back 7 years, when Pinnacle Manufacturing was nothing but a pipe dream and 4 guys in a rented office space. The kind of place sandwiched between a tire shop and a tax preparation service where the air conditioning didn't work and the printer leaked toner like a busted radiator. I just finished my transition out of the Navy. 20 years of service, 8 of them active duty, that taught me more about leadership, logistics, and keeping systems running than any business school ever could. I had my retirement savings, sure, but I also had something more valuable. I knew how to spot opportunities that other people missed. Dan Anderson was one of those 4 guys, younger then, hungrier, full of big ideas about revolutionizing manufacturing processes. The problem was big ideas don't pay rent. They were 3 months behind on everything. Office space, equipment leases, even their coffee delivery. Classic startup story, except they were about to become a classic startup failure. That's when I walked in. Not with some flashy presentation or promises about changing the world. I came with cash and a simple proposal. They needed capital. I needed an investment opportunity. We could help each other, but here's where I did something different. Instead of taking an obvious partnership role or demanding a seat at the executive table, I set up Falcon Capital Holdings. Sounds impressive, right? It's actually just a boring investment trust that handles money so quietly, most people forget it exists. The paperwork was clean layered ownership structures, operating agreements that looked standard but had some interesting fine print, preferred shares with certain rights that most people don't bother reading about. I wasn't trying to trick anyone. Everything was legal, documented, and properly filed. I just knew that most entrepreneurs are so focused on getting money, they don't spend much time thinking about where it comes from or what strings might be attached. Dan and his partners were thrilled. Suddenly they could pay their bills, upgrade their equipment, hire actual employees instead of relying on unpaid interns. They thought they'd found the perfect investor, someone who provided capital without interfering in their day-to-day operations. They were half right. I didn't interfere with their daily operations, but I made sure I had access to everything that mattered. Financial systems, vendor relationships, major contracts, compliance requirements, all the boring stuff that keeps a company running while the executives focus on strategy and vision. I took the title of operations consultant. Sounded harmless enough, like someone they brought in occasionally to review efficiency metrics. The truth was, I had more real control over the company than Dan ever did. Every major decision, every significant contract, every policy change, it all had to flow through systems I'd helped design. Dan loved giving speeches about his leadership and vision. He'd stand up at company meetings talking about our growth trajectory and market positioning, while I sat in the back taking notes. What he didn't realize was that most of his successful decisions were actually suggestions I'd planted during our weekly consultations. When suppliers started jerking us around on prices, I quietly reached out to contacts from my Navy logistics days and negotiated better deals. When we almost failed a regulatory audit that could have shut us down, I spent 3 weekends straight reorganizing our compliance documentation. When Dan's aggressive management style started driving away key employees, I implemented retention programs that made people want to stay. The company grew, not because of Dan's vision, but because someone was actually minding the store while he played CEO. We landed bigger contracts, expanded our manufacturing capabilities, built a reputation for reliability that opened doors to even more opportunities. And through it all, Dan thought he was the mastermind. He'd show up to industry conferences talking about his innovative approach to manufacturing management, never mentioning the operational consultant who kept his company from falling apart. I didn't mind. Success is success, whether you get credit for it or not. My investment was paying off. The company was stable, and I had the satisfaction of building something meaningful. Plus, staying in the background meant I could keep doing what I was good at, solving problems without dealing with all the politics and ego management that comes with being the face of a business. The irony is that Dan actually signed the documents that gave me the power to remove him. It happened 3 years ago during our Series A funding round. The lawyers had drafted what they called an operational delegation agreement, basically a formal structure for how major decisions would be handled as the company grew. Most of it was standard corporate governance stuff. But buried in subsection D was something I'd specifically requested, a misconduct clause that allowed major stakeholders to suspend executive authority if someone's behavior created significant reputational or operational risk for the company. Dan signed it without reading past the executive summary. He was too busy celebrating the new funding to worry about legal fine print. His lawyer probably skimmed it too, figured it was just standard investor protection language, but I'd written that language very carefully. Misconduct didn't just mean criminal behavior or financial fraud. It meant anything that could damage the company's reputation or create liability issues. Like, say, a public incident where the CEO's wife assaulted an employee and the CEO demanded the victim apologize. The best part is that the clause was completely legitimate. Every lawyer who reviewed it said the same thing. It was reasonable protection for investors against executive behavior that could harm their investment. Nobody questioned it because nobody expected it would ever be used. Dan thought he was building his own empire. What he really did was sign away his ability to stay in charge if he ever forgot who was actually keeping the lights on. So when Patricia slapped me and Dan told me to apologize or get fired, he was unknowingly threatening the man who'd kept his company alive through every crisis he'd never even heard about. They thought I was expendable. Some consultant they could push around whenever it was convenient. Time to show them what expendable really looks like. I didn't rage when I got home, didn't throw anything or slam doors. That would have given them too much credit. Like their little power play deserved an emotional meltdown. Instead, I poured 2 fingers of bourbon into a glass that hadn't seen daylight in months, sat down at my kitchen table, and opened the file cabinet I keep locked for special occasions. Partnership binder, tab marked Governance Remedies, page 73. The misconduct clause I'd buried there 3 years ago when they were too busy chasing their first major government contract to read the fine print. The language was deliberate and precise. Should any executive officer or authorized representative of the company act in a manner that brings reputational, operational, or legal risk to the trust or its subsidiaries, controlling interest may initiate immediate suspension of delegated authority pending board review. Translation for normal people: if someone embarrasses me publicly and I'm paying their bills, I can hit pause on their little kingdom. I drafted Emergency Resolution 315B on my laptop. Cited the public incident, the potential liability exposure, the damage to employee relations and vendor confidence. I attached screenshots from social media where people were already posting about the dinner incident. One vendor's Instagram story showed the whole slap with the caption, "When your boss lady runs the show better than the boss, stay classy, Pinnacle." Another comment thread on LinkedIn was even better. Professional tip: maybe don't let family members assault your employees at company events. Just a thought. The best part was a text message screenshot someone had posted. "Dude, did you see that old guy get slapped at the Pinnacle dinner?" CEO's wife went full Karen on him and HR backed her up. Wild. Within 4 hours of the incident, we were already becoming a cautionary tale about workplace culture and executive accountability. Dan probably had no idea how fast this was spreading through Dallas business circles. I timestamped everything, digitally signed the resolution using the electronic signature protocols we'd established for emergency board communications, and sent it to our legal proxy service with instructions for overnight courier delivery to each board member's home address. Physical copies, signature required upon delivery. No email chains they could ignore or claim they never received. No Slack messages that might get buried in notifications. Paper, ink, signatures, and a legal paper trail that couldn't be deleted or explained away. Then I sat back, finished my bourbon, and watched the tracking numbers update in real time. Every envelope delivered before midnight to board members who had no idea their quiet Monday morning was about to become very complicated. Dan thought he'd watched me walk away defeated, tail between my legs like some old dog who'd been kicked. What he didn't realize was that I just activated a system I'd spent years putting in place. Monday morning at 9 a.m. sharp, the elevator doors opened on the executive floor like any other day. Coffee cups, morning greetings, people shuffling to their offices with the usual Monday energy, but something was different. You could feel it in the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm when everything goes still. The boardroom doors were locked, not just closed, locked with new override codes that our IT contractor had installed at 6 a.m. on my instructions. Christopher Walsh, a guy I'd worked with on several security upgrades, had been happy to handle the after-hours access update, especially when I explained it was related to an urgent governance issue that required executive session privacy. Standing beside those locked doors was a woman in a navy business suit, holding a stack of thick sealed envelopes. She wasn't smiling, wasn't apologizing, wasn't explaining herself to anyone, just professional efficiency with a clipboard and delivery confirmations. Dan led the charge naturally. Barbara Johnson followed behind him, already checking her phone, like maybe this was some system glitch she could troubleshoot away. The rest of the executive team gathered around looking confused and slightly annoyed, like maybe the cleaning crew had accidentally locked them out. "What's this about?" Dan asked the courier in that tone he used when he thought someone had made a mistake that was wasting his valuable time. She held out the top envelope with his name printed in block letters. "Delivery for Daniel Anderson, internal governance memo. Please sign here for receipt." Dan squinted at the envelope like it was written in a foreign language. The return address just said Falcon Capital Holdings, Board Communications, with a Dallas P.O. Box number most of them had probably never seen before. From who, he asked? Like maybe this was some vendor communication that had gotten mixed up with executive correspondence. The courier consulted her delivery manifest with the patience of someone who'd explained this same thing multiple times already. Falcon Capital Holdings, listed as primary stakeholder with voting authority. Emergency resolution requiring board review. That's when Dan's face changed. Not angry, not confused, just blank, like someone had just told him his credit cards had been canceled, and he couldn't figure out why. He tore open the envelope with the aggressive efficiency of a man who was used to being in control of every situation. Skimmed the first page, flipped to the second, frowned at the legal language, then went back to the beginning like maybe he'd missed something important. Temporary suspension of what, he said. More to himself than to anyone else. Who authorized this? Who signed this? The courier repeated her explanation like she was reading from a script. Emergency Resolution 315B. Your executive authority has been suspended pending board review of conduct affecting stakeholder interests. Legal basis is cited under the misconduct clause in your operational delegation agreement, signed September 2021. Dan's mouth opened slightly, then closed. He looked around at his team like maybe one of them could explain what was happening, but they were all staring at their own envelopes with varying degrees of panic and confusion. That's when the rest of the executive team started opening their deliveries. Barbara's hands were actually shaking as she read her suspension notice. The CFO just stood there holding his papers like they might catch fire. Even the VP of operations, a guy who usually acted like nothing could surprise him, looked like someone had just told him the building was being demolished. Meanwhile, I was at home finishing my second cup of coffee and reading a book I'd started 6 months ago, but never had time to complete. My phone was turned off. My email was set to auto-reply with a simple message, currently unavailable for routine communications. For urgent matters, contact the board chair. Let them figure out what they'd signed without reading. Let them remember that contracts aren't just suggestions, and governance clauses aren't just legal decoration. The Navy taught me that the most effective battles are won before the enemy realizes they're fighting, and Dan Anderson was about to learn that lesson the hard way. By noon, the Whisper network was running at full speed. The regular staff didn't know exactly what was happening, just that the executive floor had gone dark and everyone who normally gave orders looked like they'd received news that their retirement accounts had vanished overnight. Stephen Johnson, our board chair, the same guy who once told me I was refreshingly low maintenance, called my personal line around 2 p.m. His voice was completely different from the confident tone he used in meetings. No corporate polish, no strategic pauses. Just quiet panic wrapped in forced professionalism. "Charlie," he said, and I could hear papers shuffling in the background. We didn't realize Falcon Capital had controlling interest in the operational decisions. I let that statement hang in the air for about 10 seconds, long enough for him to hear how ridiculous it sounded. "You weren't supposed to realize it, Stephen?" That's what made the arrangement work for everyone. See, guys like Stephen and Dan spend so much energy being the loudest voice in every room, they forget someone has to actually book the room, pay for it, and make sure the lights stay on. In this case, that someone had been me for 7 years. The emergency board meeting happened at 3 p.m. in the main conference room. Blinds drawn, no catered lunch, no casual conversation, just thick folders, tight expressions, and the kind of tension that makes people speak in whispers. Dan and Barbara weren't invited. Their access badges had been deactivated that morning by our security contractor, another contact from my Navy logistics network who understood the importance of following proper protocols when governance authority gets transferred. Stephen walked through the documentation like he was handling evidence in a criminal trial. Screenshots from social media showing the dinner incident, Vendor communications expressing concern about management stability. A formal complaint from our insurance carrier about potential liability exposure from workplace violence. And of course, the misconduct clause they'd all signed 3 years ago without bothering to read beyond the signature lines. The vote wasn't even close. 6-0 in favor of the emergency resolution, with 1 abstention from Timothy Davis, who made his money in restaurant franchises and never committed to anything he couldn't undo later if it went sideways. Motion carries, Stephen announced. Emergency Resolution 315B is approved. Executive authority for Daniel Anderson and Barbara Johnson is suspended pending comprehensive review of leadership alignment with stakeholder interests. Just like that, Dan was done. No security escort, no dramatic confrontation, no press release. Just a quiet administrative action that removed him from the company he thought he'd built from scratch. Someone told me later that Dan showed up after 5 p.m., tried to badge into the building, and stood there staring at the red light like a dog waiting for a door that was never going to open. He didn't make a scene, didn't demand explanations, just stood there looking confused, like maybe the system was playing some kind of practical joke on him. But the system wasn't joking. It was just finally operating the way I'd designed it to work. Now here's the thing. I didn't want to run the company myself. That was never the point. Titles and corner offices are for people who need name tags to get respect. But I wasn't about to let Pinnacle fall into another pair of unqualified hands just because we'd cleared out the current management. So I made some calls and brought in Linda Thompson. We'd worked together on a supply chain project 3 years back when her consulting firm helped us navigate a vendor crisis that almost shut down our production line. She had this way of speaking quietly while somehow commanding complete attention from everyone in the room. Linda flew in that same week with no fanfare, no executive search process, no 90-day transition plan. Just showed up Monday morning in a practical business suit with a temporary operations advisor badge and got to work. Within 48 hours, she'd audited our client relationships, identified 2 contracts that were bleeding money, and quietly restructured our vendor payment schedule to improve cash flow. No dramatic announcements, no all-hands meetings about new direction, just small, smart adjustments that made people feel more confident about their job security. Old clients who'd been reviewing their options after hearing about our management drama suddenly called back to schedule renewal meetings. A key supplier who'd gone radio silent after Dan's last aggressive negotiation attempt sent a shipment with a handwritten note, looking forward to working with professionals again. Even the regular employees started acting different. The nervous energy disappeared. People stopped whispering about layoffs and started talking about project deadlines. The break room conversations got back to normal, complaints about the coffee quality, instead of speculation about who might get fired next. Linda turned down the permanent CEO position when the board offered it to her 6 weeks later. "I don't need the title," she told me over coffee in the main lobby. "I just wanted to stop the bleeding and get things running smoothly again." And that's exactly what happened. No dramatic turnaround story, no inspirational leadership narrative, just competent management that focused on results instead of ego. I came back to the office 2 weeks after the board vote, took the service elevator because the main lobby was busy with end-of-quarter vendor meetings, and I didn't feel like dealing with people trying to figure out whether they should apologize, thank me, or pretend nothing had happened. Linda was waiting by the coffee station with 2 cups and a knowing smile. "I figured you'd use the back entrance," she said. We walked through offices that felt different now, more relaxed, more focused. People nodded respectfully when they saw me, not with the nervous energy they'd shown before, but with genuine acknowledgement. Like maybe they finally understood who I really was. Susan Wilson, one of our junior analysts, stopped me by the supply closet. "Mr. Williams," she said, voice slightly shaky, "we just wanted you to know we're grateful for everything you did to protect the company." I smiled and shook my head. "You don't need to thank me, Susan. Just keep doing good work." That was it. No grand speeches about justice or respect. No dramatic confrontations with fallen executives. Just quiet acknowledgement that things were back to normal. About a month later, Dan resurfaced on LinkedIn. New profile picture professionally touched up. His headline read, "Strategic Leadership Consultant, Manufacturing Operations Expert, Growth Catalyst, Growth Catalyst." The same man whose wife had slapped an employee at a company dinner while he demanded the victim apologize. His update post was classic corporate revisionism. After 7 incredible years building Pinnacle Manufacturing into an industry leader, I'm excited to help other organizations achieve operational excellence and sustainable growth. But buried in the comments, someone had written, "Pro tip, Always read the fine print before you sign governance agreements, especially the parts about misconduct clauses. I didn't respond to the comment. Didn't like it or share Dan's post. Didn't need to. When the truth is documented in legal contracts, you don't have to announce it on social media. It just sits there quietly, waiting for people to remember that respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn by understanding who you're really dealing with. Patricia Anderson thought she was putting some old consultant in his place. Dan thought he was protecting his wife's honor. Barbara thought she was managing a minor PR incident. What they really did was forget that some people build foundations strong enough to hold up entire companies. And sometimes, when people forget to show proper respect for those foundations, they get a reminder about what happens when the support gets pulled away. They thought I was a nobody, but the company they stood on was mine, always had been. They thought I was a nobody, but the company they stood on was mine. Always had been. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone assumes has no power because they've built their influence so quietly. By the time you realize who you're dealing with, it's already too late to apologize. Real authority doesn't come from titles or corner offices or who you're married to. It comes from knowing exactly which foundation stones you can remove to bring the whole building down.